In this short series, we're going to go ahead and create our first 2D platformer. So the goal of this one will be to create a character that can jump around, have some terrain that we can jump around on. We'll create a few different types of mobs, so one that will bounce back and forth, and maybe one that goes up and down using tweens. And then we'll create a few items that we can pick up to either add to our score, or maybe a key that can unlock a chest, and maybe a flag at the end that when we get to the flag, kind of like Super Mario, the level ends and we go on to the next one. So the first thing we have to do is grab some sprites. Now, honestly, it really doesn't matter what sprite pack you get, but I'm going to use one from Kenny. I'll go ahead and leave a link down below in the comments. So we just drag, drop it in. It's going to take a second to import it. And once it's done, we'll just go ahead, maximize again. And I'm actually going to put it in a folder called Assets. So I'll just quickly create another folder. And then just take those Kenny assets, drag and drop them in. This will cause a re-import, but that's okay. So while I'm here, I'm also going to create a few more folders. I want to create one for my scenes. I want to create another one for my levels. Not my levels, my scripts. Now let's create our first scene. So I'm going to create a 2D scene. And I'll just call this the main scene or level 1. We'll do main for now. And then the first thing I want to add is a tile map layer. Take note, we used to use up to 4.2. We had the tile map. It's deprecated, so we don't know how long we're going to have it. The new version is called a tile map layer. We're not going to get into the layer stuff right now. We're just going to use all the basics, which you could do in tile map anyway. But pick the layer, future-proof. Now, once I have that done, I'll come over here, make sure it's selected. Then under the tile set, we're going to create a new one. We'll open that up. And then with the pack that I picked up, I'm just going to quickly double check here. I'm going to use the sprite sheets. And if I move this over, usually there's some sort of README or a text file. In this case, I've got XML files. If I click on it, let me see the width and height. I guess it depends which one we're looking at. I'm going to look at the terrain one. I don't want the complete one. So ground XML. Yeah, that's what I thought. So the width and height is 128. So I'm going to select my tile map again. Come over here where it says tile size. Put that in. If yours says 32 by 32 or 16 by 16, whatever it says, put that in. And I'll show you what that does in just a second here. I'm going to close all these. I'm going to come into the 2D view. And then I want to come down to the tile set down here. We'll open that up. And I'm going to grab the sprite sheet ground PNG. I'll drag and drop that in here. It tells us that the Atlas texture was modified. Yeah, we'll go ahead. We'll accept that. And then we'll bring it up here so we can see it a bit better. And whatever we put over here will automatically be filled in for the region. And let me zoom in here. What it does is it fills out this outline. See the orange outline around each sprite? That's what it's doing. If this would have been smaller, let's say we went, I don't know, 52. We can see that it's not right. So 128, at least for this sprite sheet, is what it takes. So great, we got our sprites. What can we do with them? Well, if we come over to tile map, I can just come up. Let's select this one here. If we take note, they're all slightly different, right? This one here has a round up at the top. This one here is perfectly square. I can come up and just paint it. I can use these tools up here to draw a line. It'll paint it for me. Command Z to undo it. We could do a box or region of it. Kind of looks silly that way. And then we can also just like fill an area. For now, I'm mostly going to stick to just painting them one by one. We're going to create our first level today. That's all I want to do because there's better ways to use these tools, but that will come in a separate, train 2.0 or something like that. For now, let's just get used to painting them by hand. Okay, so I'm going to start off. I'm just going to paint a line down here. And take note that when we start our game, our character is going to start about here. So I actually want this to be lower. To erase, I can hold down the right mouse button and go over it, left to put it down. I can just individually click or hold it down for mass erase. So I'm actually going to put my line down here. And to be fair, I think my screen's too small. I'm going to move this down just a bit more. Let's click off of the select tool to one of the others. And I'm looking for my blue line. Looks like it's right here. Oh, it's right here. I want a bigger screen size. So I'm going to come into project settings. Now this is going to change depending on how big of a device you're working on. For now, I want to switch mine. We go to the project. Let me redo that for you. Project settings. I come down to window. And for width, I want 1920 by 1080. I just have to hit close. And there we go. We got a much bigger screen to play around on now. But I'm still going to leave that there. We are going to have to come back and do some stuff to it. But I'll save this. I'm going to save it inside of my scenes. It's called main. Save. And what I want to do is make my character. So I'll make a new scene. For this one, I'm actually going to start off with the character body 2D. I'm going to add a node. Let's do an animated sprite. We're not going to animate it just yet. And we also need to add a new child for the body shape. So the collision shape, 2D. Double check, make sure everything's a child of the main one and not like this, because you'll still get that error. Notice we have another red one here. It has to be a child of the body, which I will rename to player. And then for collision shape, before I add that, I want to make a sprite. I'm not going to worry about the animation just yet. I just want something visual to represent my player. So I'll open up the animation. I'm going to go to the sprite frames, make a new one, open that up, and then I'm actually just going to grab a single PNG for now. We'll come down to players, and I'll do the 128 by 256. Pick a color. Let's do yellow. I haven't done yellow in a video before. So I'm looking for idle. There's no idle, so I'll just do walk. I'm just going to take walk 1, drag and drop it over. Now I'll leave it right here because I want to work on my collision shape next. So I'm going to come in for my shape and add a capsule shape. And then I'm just going to come over to transform, scale. Then since they're linked together, the X and the Y, I'm just going to grab one of them. And instead of clicking into it, we'll just click on the X and kind of scale it. I want to get the width right. Now I want my character to fit inside of here. So I'm going to come back to the animated sprite. Make sure we're on the move tool. I'm going to grab just the tip of the green. Notice when I move left and right, he doesn't move. And I'm going to bring him up. I want that capsule around the bottom of his feet. Now, if we take a look, it really overshoots the top of his head. So let's make that a bit smaller. So again, I'll come down to the capsule. I don't know what the exact sizes I need here, but height-wise, I guess I could have left the width the way I want. We could unlink this and just shrink down the size this way. So it looks like we might even have been better off with a sphere. Once we add the animations though, it'll probably change. So again, bring him up. The goal is to get it to match at the bottom of his feet, pretty close. You can be up a bit, but the bottom of his feet and then the top of his head. And then the width-wise, you want to kind of have it encompass. This might be a little thick. I am just going to shrink it down a bit, but I'm not going to spend too much time on it because once we start animating, it'll be different. But OCD kicks in. Okay, I'm going to save that off. I've got my player. So let's select the player. I'm going to hit this little script button. I'm going to call it player. I'm going to save this inside of the scripts folder. So we have to go up one because we're in the scenes folder. We'll go up one into scripts. I'm going to keep the name player.gd. That's what we named the node. I'll hit open and then create. And since we started off with the character body 2D, it knows, well, this is a player. We'll probably want to be able to move left, right, and jump. So it gives us a boilerplate just to start off with. Now, I always end up just deleting all this and rewriting it. We'll do that later though, because there's other features we're going to want to add to the player. But just to start off with, we're going to keep this. So again, I'll save it. I'm going to come back into my main scene. We want to go into the 2D view. We want to instance a player. So remember, we hit the little chain up here to instance. I'm going to grab the player, hit open. It puts him up at the top here. I'm going to move him over a little bit. I'm going to save it. Since I am in the main scene, I want this main scene to be the scene that loads up every time I start my game. So if I hit the play button, it'll ask me, what scene do you want to be the main scene that runs when you start your game? I'm going to say the scene that I have selected. So again, we'll start that off. Our character will come in. He'll start falling down. Not sure why it's taken so long, but it is. And he falls through our terrain. We don't want that. We want a little platform and we want him to stop on it. And to get this to work, what I'm going to do is come into our tile map. I want to make sure I have the tile set still open. I'm going to come to the physics layers. I'm going to add a physics layer. Now, right now, everything that we've created exists on physics layer 1. So our player's on physics layer 1, our terrain's on physics layer 1. When we start creating our items net, they're all on physics layer 1. We can separate these things. If we drag this out, we have 32 layers that we can put stuff on. I don't think I've ever actually used all 32 layers. I've used maybe 8 to 12 at most. But just to get some practice in with working with layers, what I'm going to do is say, hey, I want my player. I'm going to select him, come over to the collision layer. I want to make sure he's on layer 1. And I want him to interact with everything that's on layer 2 and layer 3. Layer 2 is going to be all of our terrains. Layer 3 is going to be our enemies. Layer 4, we could have for items that we pick up. But I'm not there yet. Let's just do 2 and 3. Now, when we hover over this, it just tells us layer 2, layer 3, gives us the bit value. We can actually click this little arrow here and say edit layer names, which will bring this up from the project settings. And now we can actually name these layers. So I'm going to say players. I'll just do player. Layer 2, I'm just going to call it ground. Layer 3, enemy. And I'll stop there. I'm going to hit close. And when I come over here now and I hover over it, we now actually get the layer name that we just assigned. So great. Remember, we have player on 1, ground on 2, and for the next video, enemies we'll have on 3. So let's click back to our tile map layer. With the physics layer opened up, this top layer, the collision layer, this is the layer that we exist on. The mask is the layer that we want to interact with. And again, just to quickly go over the player. The player's on 1, he interacts with 2 and 3. So I don't want my terrain, the ground, on layer 1. I want it on 2. And take note that something can exist on more than one layer as well. But I want it to interact with the player and the enemies later. So again, I'm on layer 2, I being the terrain, and things that can interact with me are 1 and 3. Now with that done, I'll just give it a quick save. I'm going to come back over to here to my sprite sheet. I'll select it, come into the tile set. We want to go to paint. And then we have the chance to select a property we want to paint. I'm going to come down to physics layer 0. This is what we just made. And take note of the shape. It starts off just a square. If I click on this box, it's a perfect square. And I can come in to all my square boxes, and actually I can just hold the mouse down and paint these in. And it's creating an actual collision for us to collide against. So I'm actually going to quickly undo all of that. I just want the one I'm currently working on. So I'll click on it. I'll save it. Now this is the one I created right here. This whole strip of terrain was made with this one. So now if I go ahead and hit run, it'll start off, I run, and now I land on it. And since we actually kept the code that we got from our character body 2D, we can slide around on it left and right. We can jump. Obviously, we're going to have to play around a lot with that. But we can also fall off and, well, I guess fall forever because we have nothing set up to actually kill us when we fall. So I'm going to open it back up. At any point in time, I can come back into my tile set. Since I'm in the paint tab, I can see what's painted. So again, I can paint all the square ones just by clicking it. But take note, if I come in and I take this one, I don't want my collider in this area. I just want it in the corner. And if I select it, it shows it as like the whole thing is. So let's actually take this and paint some in. So I'll come back to the tile map. I'm going to take this one, make sure I'm on the select tool, and I'll just paint a couple of these up. And then maybe this, well, we should have taken some regular dirt one. So I'm going to take this dirt one. Actually, there's a better one down here that has just a corner right here. So I'll have to make sure to put a collider on that one down there too. Eventually you want to put colliders on all these. It's a bit of a time consuming part of the setup, but it's worth it. So I'm going to save it. If I run, I start moving, and then I can jump up here, and it still has the collider for me to collide on. It's like we have to play around a bit with our shapes. But the main thing is because I painted it as a square, it thinks that this here part is also part of the terrain. I don't want that. I want it to be very smooth along where the top of the grass is. Let's fix that. So again, I'll come into the tile set. I'm going to select this one here. And all I have to do is just take this point. Come on, if I can get it. You can do it. You have to get it to light up green. So if I zoom out, I can get it. And then it goes right about there. I guess technically you could delete it as well. But I'll leave it right there and I'll come back in, click it, and notice that it covers just this bottom part. And again, I'll save. Let's run it again. And now when I get there, I can't go up because the angle is just a little bit too much. But notice that I'm actually along the edge now. And we'll have to play around with some of the friction and whatnot. But hey, we got it set up. So what I want you to do is come in, set up all of your colliders, and paint out your first level. It doesn't have to be huge or massive. Let's say, I don't know, how wide should we do? Well, I'll tell you, I'm going to leave that up to you. Think of a standard, maybe Super Mario level, maybe half of that. The whole point is just to get the basics set up and to get you familiar with just painting stuff out, plus setting up your colliders. Once you get that done, I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.